By now, you've probably seen the terrible allegations against Russell Brand, and they are both terrible and allegations. Today, we want to be talking about some of the legal issues around it. I want to dig into that, kind of give you some ideas and thoughts of what might be coming in the coming weeks and months as this continues to unfold, and really help put some context around where things might be headed with Russell Brand. So I did a video on my other channel, fairly popular, where we talked about what we're seeing here and the fact he's just been alleged and so much has happened, but I want to see what the next steps will be. Obviously, some of the allegations that have been alleged are of the nature that will be criminal. So we will potentially see Mr. Brand going through the criminal system, right? So he will be potentially tried for these alleged crimes if we can get to the point where the victims actually come forward. Here in the U.S., you obviously have a right to face your accuser. I'm not as familiar with the UK legal system, but at some point these will have to be turned from just being anonymous victims to being real factual things that he can potentially defend himself against. If you're familiar with the UK system, we'd love to have your input on that as well. The other thing we'll potentially see here is civil claims, right? And it's not clear where all this happened, right? Mr. Brand was traveling a lot during the time period where these allegations happen. So geography will matter because that will potentially mean which legal systems this might get plugged into. He may potentially have criminal charges coming in multiple systems along with the potential for civil charges. Perhaps some of this conduct happened in the U.S. When he was filming movies or doing other things, in which case, you're looking at charges in the U.S. as well. He could end up potentially answering to multiple court systems. So criminal charges and then also potentially civil claims from the victims for whatever their damages, losses are. They could potentially be looking to come after him. So a lot of legal hot water on that front. The other big thing happening is swirling around him is a lot of contractual issues. So if you've seen a lot of his supporting companies that he was working with, branding companies, PR companies, etc., have pulled away from working with him. And so that may well be within their prerogative, but what's going to matter here is the wording of the contracts. It'll be interesting to see how they work out over time. Now, most of this will probably be done behind closed doors and through some type of settlement process. So should there be a full-fledged litigation where people are actually filing in court and making claims, we may get to see some of what is happening, right? It may end up in the public record. Most likely, what's happening right now behind closed doors is the various law firms and sides of these contracts are negotiating with each other. We'd have to see what the termination clauses say, what rights these companies had to pull away from Mr. Brand. Could they just unilaterally say, we're not working with you anymore? What if there had already been payments made before? And then some other areas where it can get hairy is, if there's success fees or performance fees and we're partway through a process. Let's say Mr. Brand's paying, for getting appearances on media channels. Maybe that's part of the clauses of the contract. And, maybe he has stuff scheduled that's now been canceled. How does that fall? Right? So there's probably going to be a lot of talk around Mr. Brand's contracts, what happens with them, and who pays who. You can see from his standpoint, he probably needs PR help and branding and representation as far as getting his name out there and getting his message out there more than ever, although maybe he doesn't want to use that, right? One of the things you typically do from a legal standpoint when you start getting these kind of allegations flying is you don't want to put stuff out there that's going to add to it. And in fact, his last YouTube video, at least the last YouTube video I've seen pop up on my feed, I would occasionally watch his stuff. He was saying that he could only say so much because of the legal proceedings. So he is starting to get boxed in. So it's really a careful balancing act between how much he wants to be out in front of the media, how much does he want to stay quiet. Now he's been terminated by these companies, and there's going to potentially be claims both directions, depending on where the contracts are, if they're partially performed, if work has been done, who pays who, and if this was terminated, let's say this was a 3-year contract and there's a termination clause, reading that termination clause to determine whether, it was an appropriate cause, and how the money flows is going to be very important, right? Because sometimes these contracts do have a clause saying they be terminated, but then it will impact the amount of money due from one side to the other. So I expect that there's a lot going on behind closed doors right there. Another big issue with Mr. Brand, of course, is the deplatforming. And so, he's been pulled. Last I heard, he's been demonetized by YouTube, right? So they're saying, hey, we're not going to pay you as we run ads against your channel, right? And that is the belief, is that he still has the channel and it's still running, last I heard. So ads are going to be running, but the money's going to be held to the side and not paid over to him because of the YouTube terms of services. I mean, we can expect other platforms may do the same. I've actually seen headlines saying that perhaps there's pressure to try to get him off of Rumble completely, given what's going on here. All of this to be said, these companies usually have broad rights to deplatform, and they usually, give themselves a lot of leeway. YouTube has a clause about conduct on or off the platform, which can cause harm to the platform. And so I think that's what they've invoked at this point. And they're going to point to that and say, we, followed our own rules and we deplatformed you, right? You can see he may be upset about it, but it may not give rise to a claim unless he can somehow prove that, maybe they've treated other people differently or something like that. But for the most part, these companies have broad discretion. They're going to get to enforce their rules the way they want. And in fact, there's stories out there where a lot of people feel like they've been wrongly accused or wrongly deplatformed. And there's really very little remedy, unfortunately, right? These systems are not set up necessarily to be democratic. These are private companies with a good deal of power, at least under the U.S. legal system. They get to decide what they want to do. And if you just get caught up in the tidal wave and the wrong things happen, a lot of times there's not much you can do. Many of you users, comment below, let me know, many viewers, maybe of the situation where you've had this happen with Facebook or another platform, right, where they just arbitrarily suspend your account, knock you off or whatever, and then you have to fight back. It happened with me personally on LinkedIn. I made some comments about inflation, also made some comments about, just some, effectiveness of different things, and next thing you know, and I didn't question, any governmental standard or anything. I just noted the behavior of the government. And, because I noted those two things, my LinkedIn account actually was turned off for a period of time. Had to go through a process with LinkedIn to get my account back and promised to agree to their terms of service, which I already do. And, just because, and when we were going through this process, the only things they could point to is my statements on inflation and my review, a really historical review of certain governmental actions. And that was enough to get me suspended, right? And there's not much I can do to, be made whole for the time that I was off the platform. These platforms are used to turning people off and on, and there's very little legal consequences from them. So you might hear some rumbling around that, not to have a pun there, but you might hear some rumbling around the deplatforming and stuff. But I don't expect that's going to go as far, And then of course there is some potential reputational claims by Mr. Brand in the event that these claims are proven to be, unfounded or wrongful or, made up, then he may potentially have claims against the accusers, right? So my understanding from what I've collected now from comments on my video on my other channel, the Future Done Right channel, and from viewing other people's videos and what I've collected in general, is the media went out and started contacting a lot of people. And so in that process, as they were connecting with people, they were asking, did you have any problem? And they may have contacted 1,000 or more people. A couple of them raised their hand. Now, if those couple people raised their hands, did it just because maybe they don't like the new political stand of Mr. Brand, they don't like his work, and decided that they wanted to, throw an iron in the fire to try to derail his career? And these things aren't based on actual fact. And again, that's a big jump, right? And we don't know that that's the case because right now we just don't know, right? We have a bunch of, unsourced allegations, which may be true or may be false. And so we got to keep an open mind here until we know. But the fact is, if these people, if they made an unfounded claim, there may be claims going the other direction, for his reputation, his losses and damages, which appear to be substantial at this point, right? He's being largely silenced and pushed to the side, obviously lost monetization on different platforms. So what happens now with this? Well, we're going to see a lot of litigation. This guy has bought himself a lot of legal fees, going to be very expensive. And I expect we'll have a lot of headlines as this twists and turns in the coming weeks and months. Potential civil claims, potential criminal claims. What order do they come in? What strategy do the lawyers use? It's going to be very interesting. If it's something you're interested in, do let me know in the comments. We can continue to track this from a legal standpoint. We typically focus on business law, helping business people grow here on the channel. I think this is important because it shows you what could happen in your business if there's allegations, and it also shows you what happens if you could potentially have a bad employee and how your business could get caught up in some of this as well. So it's helpful for all of us to monitor this. So if it's something you're interested in, let me know. We'll do some more monitoring of it. Look forward to your questions and comments below. Learn a lot from those. And if you're a new subscriber, please say hi. Let me know you're new here. And regardless, let me know what you want me to cover in future videos. We'll try to tune in the channel to that. All right, guys, I'll see you for another video soon.